I put my cell phone in a little tray, and it goes through the radar thing, or the X-ray, and I go and I walk through the metal detector, and as I just am getting through the metal detector, I see one of the safety people, the inspector people, grab my cell phone up, hold it up, and they yell to the person at the far end of the scanner system. They said, "Hey, look at this. Have you ever seen one this old?" And of course, I'm not quite sure, should I be really insulted or what? And so I walk over, and she goes, "Does it still work?" And I go, "Yes, very well." You know, but she was right. It was about a 5-year-old cell phone. In their world, how could you do it? Well, fortunately, I have a friend at Sprint who was telling me when that system that ran that cell phone was going to go offline. So I knew I only had a few more months left to use that phone, and I really loved this phone. But because it always worked. Not like I have my phone right now that's got all sorts of features I can't get to work half the time. But see, the problem was innovation. I was old. And because I showed up with an old phone, I guarantee you, what did they think of me as far as my closeness to being a digital native? I'm way over here in digital immigrant land. I'm way lost. I'm out in the woods because look, I got 5-year-olds old. Okay, they wanted new. So let's reduce this down really quick. Let me just kind of say what I see. What they see is they want creativity. They want to be creative. They want to be playful. Integrity is very important to them. Things need to have meaning for them. It's not just good enough to just do something. The doing has to have meaning. They want to and need to collaborate. Okay? They want things that are new, and they want it now. As educators, folks, here's the deal. If we don't have something that's new and now, how do you think we're going to react to them? How are they going to react to us? They're going to raise up our 5-year-old cell phone, you know, and they're going to say, "Hey, does this thing still work?" Digital natives, to turn them off. I guarantee you, quick ways to turn them off: drill and kill. So much that we do these days in education is all drill and kill for those state assessments, right? We wonder why we're just pissing off the digital natives. You know? Drill and kill, folks. It drives them nuts. They don't want to unplug from their world. They don't understand why when they walk into a classroom, the first thing you got to do is turn off the world. They live in the world. They don't understand why they need to turn that off. Because you know what? On the off hours, they're doing a lot of learning and creating and innovating and making in that world. When they come to class, that's when we tell them to stop being creative and stop innovating and stop doing new things, right? So many times. Don't have them just fill in blanks. Yeah, I mean, let's face it, folks. The students hate the idea that they have to read something and fill in a blank. I would argue, if you want to reach the digital native, then do this. Have them invent the answer, create the answer. Don't just give them a blank to fill in. You're insulting them. They are tired of just jumping through hoops for a grade. So many times I think you've all had students who just say, like, you know, what's this grade really worth? You know? Well, you know what? Because everybody before you had them just jumping through lots of hoops. And if they weren't giving them chances to create and invent, then they knew they were just jumping through hoops. Because in their world, they create and invent. Okay? Really, you know what? I mean, think about it. How much different is that really from us? When we were in school, we'd have the math teacher. The math teacher would write something big up on the board. Wasn't there always somebody in the classroom that raised their hand and say, "When are we going to use this?" Right? Didn't we feel like that? The difference was we just didn't really speak it out as much. We kept it more inside, didn't we? Okay? Why? Because actually the difference between our world in school and our world outside wasn't so different. But nowadays, the difference between what's inside school and the world that our digital natives live in is very different, very dramatic. You know? So you know what? I don't feel that they really are that much different than us. They just have had a different experience in their life. So let's talk about getting them engaged. So let's talk about leveraging game technology as a way to do this. Digital natives. So what's a game? You know, a game, folks, is basically, you know, a video game is basically an experience they're going to have. It's got some rules, you got some goals, you're going to keep score, and you're going to get entertained. Essentially, that's a game. That's all. You know, Monopoly, it's a game. You got a board, you got some rules, You know, and the big thing you're trying to do is make your friend land on Park Place with 4 hotels so you can really just take him to cleaners. You know, that's the game. You're doing it for entertainment. Not necessarily for education, but you're doing it for entertainment. What are simulations? Well, simulations are really more technical. They're more for realistic training. When you get done with a simulation, the idea is you're better prepared to go and do something specifically in the real world. Okay, so that's simulations. Serious games. The serious games, to me, really is a blending of these. In serious games, you'll have simulation technology, you'll have some game and interactivity pieces going in there, but serious games are used to do serious education. Serious games are what companies have used, military have used, and in fact, we're starting to see serious games really come into education. So a lot of times when I introduce my company, and they ask what you do, I'll say that we're actually a serious games creator. So let's talk about this. Ask a student to tell you about a video game they play. They love to play. Have them explain the game, and what will you hear is a story. A story. If you ask a student about a video game they play, they're not going to do this for you. They're not going to say, well, you know, you hit X button, A button, right trigger, left joystick, left button, A button. That's not the game. That's not what they describe to you. You have them describe a game. What do they tell you? They tell you the story of it. You're the master sergeant. There's these aliens who come into the universe, and they're going to try and wipe out the whole race. And I've got to go in there. I got to get to the master alien. I got to steal the whatever. They tell you a story. Interesting. They tell you a story. They're engaged with a story. I would argue that video games in general are nothing more than interactive stories. It's the story about the video game that really engages you. Because I'll tell you what, making games, I'll tell you this, 3D games all have about the same thing going on. You've got like a 3D character that runs around, you've got an environment, you either throw stuff, pick up stuff, bump into stuff. That's the 3D game. Really. That's the kernel of the 3D game. It's the story and what you're doing inside the game that makes that game really engaging. Digital natives, we recognize that all games can teach, but this does not mean that all games are great for education. So I'm not advocating that we go out and just grab games, bring them into the classroom and say, oh, this is e-learning, and oh, wow, we're all going to learn stuff. No. You got to be careful what games you choose and what games you select. I read an article one time about a guy who was trying to help gang members get out of being gang members, and students who thought they might become gang members to get out of it by playing Grand Theft Auto. Grand Theft Auto, as you may know, is a game where you drive around and you shoot people, kill people, kick people, knife people, and try to avoid being caught by the cops. I'm not quite sure that was really a good choice of game technology. I think they almost glamorized that lifestyle, even though the guy was trying to say, well, you know, this, you don't want to do this because this will bad things will happen to you. But I will say this, with a little bit of care and some knowledge, we can build what we need. You know, this we really do know, folks. We were doing this. Digital native e-learning. So how do we capture their hearts and minds? How do we capture the hearts and minds of these digital natives? Because isn't that what we need to do as educators? We need to engage them. We can't get them engaged, we can't get them to learn, right? So at the kernel, what we must do for these digital natives is get them engaged. Win them over. Well, here's how we do it, folks. Let's give them the world. Why not? Why not give them the world? We're talking about a way to really engage somebody, engage the digital learner, digital native. How about let's just give them the world? Okay, and e-learning can let us do that. These technologies that we have in e-learning can let us do that for them. But we need the power of the story. Okay, we need the power of the story. Why, as e-learning developers and consumers, do we want to talk about the power of the story and the story? Because stories are easy to remember. In many ways, stories are how we remember. Think back to things you've learned in your past. Think back to things those big life skills, those big things you've learned in your life. Were they when somebody just walked up and said, by the way, it's 23? No. There's a story around it. There's a story around it. 23 has a meaning to it and value to it. Okay? Story around it and value to it. And value to it. And value to it. and value to it, 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 and value to it.